It's hard to stay awake after you have a beautiful meal like that. Wasn't that something? I don't know if Betty's in the picture, but I think we did it. Betty and Claudia, and don't they treat you like you're just queens? Yeah. I said, have you ever anybody fuss over you so much? Oh, sorry, the microphone. I think you can all hear me. That's what's good. All right. Father, do you want to start us with a little prayer? As we ate it, I'm afraid they're all going to fall asleep after that wonderful meal.
Sure. Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Holy Father, we thank you for the opportunity to listen to Marianne this evening, or this afternoon. Ask you to send your Spirit upon us as we gather, help open our ears and our minds, and inspire her with words of wisdom. And we ask all of this in the name of Jesus Christ, your Son and our Lord. Amen. Amen. Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Thank you. Well, today we're going to talk about one of the hardest subjects, and I suggested it because every time we give a talk someplace, I can talk about family life or whatever, and probably the number one question or something when people take me aside, it's always, but what about when loved ones leave the faith? And I think that, I don't know, maybe everybody, maybe none of you have that. Most people I know somebody. Could even be a parent, could be a brother, a sister, someone you love. Hardest to accept is when it's a child, you know. And I always say, now, you know, I have 13 kids, and some of my kids are knee-deep in the church, love it, they're working, they're doing things that are just wonderful in the church, and I have a couple other ones with one foot on the banana peel, and I'm not sure what's going to happen. I just keep praying. So, I mean, that's the truth in a little bit about my story. I want to start here. So this is probably going to be a little more time of sharing for all of us. Hopefully you'll jump in if you have something you want to add a little bit later. But I'll start with something that I remember when my husband and I first had our first sets of kids, and we went to parents' meeting at church, at school. And Tim was in the 3rd grade. Tim was my second baby. And the assignment for the kids was to describe what your father was like, what it was like when your father was in the 3rd grade. And at that point, you know, John and I were still new parents. We only had the 2 kids. And we thought our kids were going to love everything about us. We were going to parent differently. We were going to be liberal. Our kids were going to like us, you know, and you know how that goes. So then we get to school and we read, this is Tim's assignment. When my dad was in 3rd grade, the desks were all stuck together. They didn't have a playground or swings. They didn't have a chalkboard. They didn't have electric lights. They had to write, they didn't have pens. They had to write with feathers. So, now my husband was just starting to lose his hair and was like, oh my gosh, this kid is not going to relate to us at all. And sometimes your kids look at you like that too. And so those of you who still have kids at home know, and especially when they get to that adolescent and teenage years, they roll their eyes, they say, you're in the Stone Age. Nobody, you know, why do we have to live different? My kids would always say that. Why can't we live like everybody else? And I say, because we just don't fit in with everybody else, you know. So parents sometimes can worry about that. And then I go back to what my pastor first said, and that was parents are the first missionaries of their children. And if they're the first missionaries, then I look at grandparents, godparents, at aunts and uncles as being that second ring suburb, that second ring of influence to the child. And it's true, studies have proven that kids who are raised even in the most liberal area and the most liberal schools or whatever with friends surrounded by friends, that they bounce back, that the approval they really want is from their parents. So that means we better be good, so that they will follow us. They're watching what we do, not so much what we say, but they watch what we do. And the same thing for us grandparents. And that's why I said we have to do what we can to share our faith, even in those difficult times when we might be faced with some opposition. This was my daughter Mary, she had to write a paper in 5th grade on why she wants to remain smoke-free. And you know, that's the big thing now, is we got to teach them about the environment, and smoking, and all these other terrible habits. As we legalize marijuana. I mean, this nation sometimes I think it gets so schizophrenic in what we say and what we do. So she says, I want to remain smoke-free because you can get lung cancer, heart disease, emphysema, and yellow fingers. And the reason why I say this is because we didn't have anybody in our family that had yellow fingers. You know, by that time I quit smoking. I used to be a big smoker. And so I thought, but kids observe. The point is, the kids are watching us. The grandkids, the nephews, the people at church. Really, people are, you know, but especially those who love us, they're watching us. And so it's important for us to, even if we don't feel like it, that we gotta, you know, we have to show them the love and joy of the faith. You know, maybe it's not our time or they hit us in a bad mood or whatever. Or we feel pressured to conform and just don't bring up prayer or just don't rock the boat or whatever. But we are called to be Catholic women, and we're Catholic women of faith, and we have, this may be our only opportunity. And I always think that women sets the tone. I have to quote St. Francis. He says, well, Mother Teresa is wonderful too. She says, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. And I often think it's easier to send a donation to Africa than to home. I mean, sometimes it's hard, you know? It's hard, especially if they don't want to be loved the way I want to love them, with a little discipline thrown in for good measure, you know? But go home and love your family. And it's so true that nuclear family is what's guiding the United States and keeping us from falling like other nations have. Well, St. Francis says, and this is for you and I, especially as nurturers, because we women are natural nurturers. We really are. We can't even help ourselves. We just are. St. Francis says, we have been called to heal wounds, to unite what has fallen apart, and to bring home those who have lost their way. Many who may seem to us to be children of the devil will still become Christ's disciples. Isn't that wonderful? That means while we might think they're really lost for good, that as long as there's a breath, and we don't know what goes on in other people's minds, really. We just don't know about how God uses conversion in His timing, not ours. As I say, you can tell I'm a type A personality, and I'm a control freak. Everyone knows. You know, I told them I got a birthday coming up and I might plan a party. And the kids said, you don't like parties. I said, I know, but this time I'm in control. I hate it when they do surprises on me. But when you think about it, and so we're called to be healers, and that's right in with who we are as women. We're natural nurturers and lovers, and we think of the small things, the detail. The husbands, I really do, I love the difference between the men and the wife. You know, the husbands really are, they should be the head. You know, I hate to say it. And you women, if you don't know how to get your way, we all know how to get our way. She's laughing because it's true, Verona. Is that true? She's laughing. But I love the movie. How many here saw the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding? When she's telling about, you know, the husband is the head. Don't forget, the husband's the head. But the woman, the wife is the neck, and the neck turns the head. And it's so true. You know, it's so very true. And it really proving my point, well, I'll tell this in the next thing, but 40% of the calls we get to our hotline are men. 40%. That was the biggest shock in my life when we started running a hotline. Their brothers, their fathers, their husbands, their boyfriends, their an uncle who, you know, and it proves my point that men are natural providers and protectors. They're protectors. They're not ready to run this girl down into the abortion clinic, as many of us would like to have been told to believe. Well, okay, so we each have our role, and our number one goal is what? To get our loved ones to heaven. We can't ever forget that. That's our goal. And then for people we don't know is to point to the glory of God. We're just pointers. We're walking billboards. You know, I'm big on billboards, so we're walking billboards. Well, I always think that women set the tone by our language, by the way we dress, by the way we act, by our faith and everything. We do set a tone. You know, when you think of going to church, I told my kids, we're going to dress up. We have a rule in the house when the kids were little that we're in Minnesota, so you know how cold it gets. I say the girls have to dress up every week, and they can't wear pants unless it's below zero. My girls used to pray for below zero because they didn't want to dress up. But there's something about who are we meeting? We're going to meet the King. We're going to meet, this is our Lord. So So we want to dress in something that's special for us that day. And we have to set the tone. I didn't always feel like dressing up. In fact, I was lucky I made it to Mass half the time because I'm chasing kids, you know. But we set the tone by our language and everything. That's why I was so shocked when I read this in the morning paper. The morning I was giving a talk in Colorado last week in the Wall Street Journal. And just before I left, they had it on some morning show. I had television on the background of my hotel room as I was getting ready. And here's the title of it. Some of you may have read it. Schools add new section to dress code for parents. And I'd just like to share some. You saw it. Okay, a Houston school is clamping down on inappropriate dress not by students, but by their parents, joining a handful of schools across the country that are banning short dresses, sleepwear, and other items parents sometimes wear into school buildings. The parents were coming in risque clothes, says Carlotta Outley Brown, the principal of James Madison High School in Houston. They were coming in a manner that was not presentable for the educational setting. Then another teacher from, let me see, where's he from? Someplace in, Mr. Parkinson said, he's from Tennessee State School. Mr. Parkinson said he has heard concerns from school leaders about parents showing up in inappropriate wear, including a parent coming to an elementary school in a negligee. It's hard to believe. Based on what the principal told me, body parts were exposed, he said. Think about what that does to a child for the rest of the day. I thought, child? What about the teachers? The point is, whoever these parents, what really disappointed me. So now I'm getting ready for this talk. I think I'm going to take this article. I made a copy of it. I'm going to put this in my talk. And so they showed this, and I don't remember what station it was on, but some morning show where 2 or 3 people get up and discuss the latest news. And one was a lady and then 2 were gentlemen. And so they said, oh, they're going to put this dress code in some of the schools. And she pipes up and she says, well, I sometimes will go in rollers to bring my kid, and I don't think it's bad if they go in their pajama bottoms. And I'm thinking, really? You don't help the situation at all. This is some media woman who looks like $1 million, of course. You can't imagine. So my point is that we should be, the Blessed Mother carried Christ inside and gave him to the world. And when I was a kid growing up, the nuns used to say we should be most Mary-like. And when I think of it now, that's what we're asked to do. We're supposed to carry Christ to the world. And how can we do it in a negligee or pajamas or things that are not appropriate for us as mothers or as women? So we have to, even if we have to fake it, sometimes I don't feel like dressing up. Sometimes I feel crummy or I'm crabby, but I force myself because I'm afraid someone's going to see me. And it's what happens when you dress up and you put a smile on your face and you fake it. Pretty soon you rise to the occasion, you know? And so I think we women have to portray some type of virtue and some kind of self-control, even if the world is saying that they actually have to put a darn dress code in because some women don't want. And it's true, even on our hotline, you wouldn't believe the way some of the women talk, the crass, crude, vulgar, and awful language we hear out of the mouths of women. I think it's the women talking this. I can't imagine a truck driver or the person that's going with her. So we may not be able to change the world, but St. Paul says, encourage one another while it is still today, so that no one grows hardened by the deceit of sin. So maybe just by our manners, by our behavior, that doesn't mean we're self-righteous or we're better than now. No, it just means that we want to portray a little dignity and virtue and sweetness. Sweetness. Well, sometimes hear people say, well, I'm not my brother's keeper. And you know what? We are. We're supposed to be. And we're supposed to, that doesn't mean we can change or convert some of those loved ones. When my kids were small, I never had paper diapers to last a couple of kids. So we had cloth diapers, and we'd go to Grandma's cabin, and we'd come home with this bucket full of terrible diapers that were soaking in something. And boy, it better not spill while we're driving home in the van. But I hated dirty diapers. I hated laundry. I averaged 4 to 11 loads a day. And that meant Christmas, Easter. When you got 13 kids, you can't skip a day or two because you don't have that many clothes, so you have to keep washing. But the dirty diapers were the thing that bothered me the most, that and laundry. And so I started doing what Bishop Sheen said, offer it up. I love being Catholic. We don't let anything go to waste. Even the stuff we don't like, we can offer it up. Isn't it fun? I don't know what the Protestants do, but we get to offer it up. And so I would look at this dirty diaper from this kid, and I think, you know, this is for my brother. He is on his third marriage. He is so miserable. He's got these kids out of wedlock. His life is as dirty and messy as this diaper, you know? And it makes you chuckle. You start chuckling and laughing over the person you're offering it up for, or someone who doesn't care for you, you know? We have this wonderful neighbor that didn't care for us, you know? So I can open up this diaper, I can do this load of laundry and say, this is for Bill. And it makes you smile, because while he's mad at me, I'm praying for him. Isn't it fun? And you can make some fun out of it, and you're offering it up. And we don't know if it had an effect or not. We just do it and let God take over. And so the first thing I would say, what do we do if we have a loved one that leaves the faith? We pray. And we keep praying. And we pray every day. We're persistent. I love one of my very favorite, I got several favorite stories, but one of my favorite stories is what our Lord taught us. And in fact, I'll read it to you because it's so much fun. I think of myself, I sometimes worry if she was I sometimes wonder if she was really Italian and not Jewish, but he told them a parable on the necessity of praying always. This is Jesus. When he said, and not losing heart, quote, once there was a judge in a certain city who respected neither God nor man. A widow in that city kept coming to him saying, give me my rights against my opponent. For a time he refused, but finally he thought, I care little for God nor man, but this widow is wearing me out. I'm going to settle in her favor, or she'll end up by doing me violence. The Lord said, listen to what the corrupt judge has to say. Will not God then do justice to his chosen who call on him day and night? Will he delay long over them, do you suppose? I tell you, he will give them swift justice. So my point is that I like the widow that named the corrupt judge. You know, we just keep begging in a different way. And then we have to let go and let God. But we have to keep reminding him, you know, here we are, I'm still asking for this because we know it's important. We want to pray everyone into heaven. And you and I as Catholics are so lucky. We're so blessed because we aren't doing it by ourselves. We have what I call an arsenal. I mean, we have our own secret weapons, and I didn't bring my rosary up here, but that Blessed Mother, I can tell you, will help in anything we ask for. And St. Joseph, especially for when it's got to do with men, or working, or jobs, or in fact, I prayed for a safe trip when I travel. I figured, imagine how many times he had to get up in the middle of the night and go someplace because the angel told him danger is coming. And he always got there safely. So I prayed to St. Joseph for that. But we have an arsenal of saints. We have an arsenal of sacraments that build us up, that nourishes us, that keeps us replenished. And the rosary is the most powerful weapon outside of the sacredness of Mass. You know, we had kids that were some of our adopted kids had really troubled lives. They were emotionally troubled. One was suffering from mental illness. One kid was in and out of treatment centers. I didn't know what we were going to do. We just tore our family. My husband and I were liberal for a while until we had a bunch of kids. And then I said to him, you know what? I think we better go back to the rosary. You know, for a while they were diminishing the Blessed Mother and the rosary and the saints and getting rid of all that stuff in the 60s and 70s. My husband said, the rosary, gosh, we haven't said the rosary in years. I said, I know, but we have these kids and it's a mess and we better do something. So it got to be Lent, perfect excuse. So I announced at the dinner table, good time, you got a captive audience, they want to eat. We're going to say a decade of the rosary every night because it's Lent. Okay, first week goes by. Second week I say, oh, Auntie Joni's getting married. I didn't say she was getting married outside the church. Auntie Joni's getting married, so we're going to pray that she has a blessed marriage. So second decade, second week of Lent. Third week, my dad's in the hospital. I say, Grandpa's in the hospital. We need to pray for Grandpa. We're adding the third decade of the rosary. Can't remember what the other two decades were, but now we're in the group. Now we have dinner. We clear the table. Captive audience, everyone's got a little job, and we're saying the rosary, and we always had a thing where we let each kid lead. Whoever could name the decade got to lead. So that kept the kids' interest. The little kids loved to beat up the older kids and say they could name the decade of the rosary. Well, it's now June, and all of a sudden my adopted son Charlie looks up at me and goes, hey, isn't Lent over? We're now in the swing of things. And in fact, we say it when in the car, our van. I mean, you're driving around with 12 or 13 kids in the van, I'll tell you, it gets to be kind of hairy. So I would pull out the rosary. In fact, I just went to the gas station the other day. The young man that's now running the gas station lived across the street from us. And he said, oh, Mrs. K, I still remember those rides up to the lake cabin, and we'd be punching each other in the back of the van and having a good time until you whip out that rosary and say, time for the rosary, kids. It settles everybody down. It does. It settles everybody down. And what are they going to do to escape? Jump out the window? You know. But there's something sacred that happens that we're all praying. And the Blessed Mother, I don't think we would have been able to be successful at raising our kids had it not been for the Blessed Mother. She put a dome over our house. I really believe that with my whole heart. A dome of protection over our house because we relied on the Blessed Mother. And of course, in the sacraments too. So I would say pray, lean on our best weapons, which is Mass. If you can get to the Holy Sacrifice of the Mass more than once a week, try to. It'll just, or even adoration. You won't believe the miracles that will happen if you do. And you won't believe the opposition. You wouldn't believe all the opposition I had when I first wanted to suggest the rosary. It was like the sky was falling. The devil was so mad. So I thought, boy, this must be really powerful. I guess we better really do it because I like opposition. You know, that's probably why I'm the pro-life movement. But here what else our Lord reminds us of. He says, and we have this confidence in Him that if we ask anything according, this is John 1, and we have this confidence in Him, meaning God, our Lord, that if we ask anything according to His will, He will hear us. And if we know that He hears us in regard to whatever we ask, we know that what we ask for is ours. That doesn't mean we'll see it in our lifetime, and it doesn't mean that we'll see it the way we want to see it. It means that God hears our prayers and He's answering in His time and His way that will best give honor and glory to God. And that's the hard part. That means that we have to be confident that God is answering, that God's hearing us. I'm a control freak. I raised 13 kids, and it's because I'm just a big control freak. I'm a boss, I'm a nag. I make sure, and I don't care if my kids are married or if they're Army or in the Navy or whatever. They're gonna hear from me. You know, my one son was in the Army, and he had 2 tours of duty overseas, and on one tour of duty was on he was in a war zone and everything. So he got back and he was stationed in Texas, and he called home and it was Thanksgiving. So they took the phone and the kids were passing all around him. Hey, Tony, what was it like? Did you ever go to that Western bar down in Houston? So-and-so, because they're all asking about things they know about Texas. So it gets to me and I said, so, have you found a church, and when's the last time you've been to confession? And he goes, oh, Mom, I'm a grown man now. I've been in the Army. I've been in the war zone. No big deal. You know, and everybody asks me about all these fun things, but the only thing that's on your mind is the same old, same old. Did I go to Mass and did I go to confession? I said, yeah. And give me the name of the person that cares more about your soul. Long pause. I love you, Mom. Nobody. It's true, right? If we don't ask, that doesn't mean He's going to do it, but He knows I'm praying. You know, He knows we're asking. He knows what's important. And that's what we need to do. We just have to remind them what's important, you know. Sometimes we forget. My daughter, Angie, and her husband bought their grandma's cabin, and now they've got 6 kids. And so she was telling me the other day, she says, Mom, I pulled a mom, meaning she behaved like I would. And I said, what do you mean? She says, remember my friend, I'll call her Susie, that I went to high school with. I said, yeah. She says, well, she's been living with Bob for over 10 years, and they want to come to the cabin. And she says, I just told them, you know, you can come for the day, but you can't stay overnight because it's my grandma's cat. You know, there's family rules here that I just couldn't dare step over. So sorry. And she says, oh, that's really your mother. I know it is. And that's okay. I said, blame me. What do I care? This kid isn't my friend. Blame me if you have to. But I said this once at a talk, and this couple waited until everybody was gone, and then they said, can we talk to you about something? I said, yeah. And they said, well, you know your story about the cabin? And I said, yeah. And they said, you know, the husband said, I told my wife, it was like listening to Adam and Eve. It's her fault. He said, I told my wife it wasn't right, but she let our son, who's living with his girlfriend, come and stay at the cabin and have their own bedroom. And he says, now you're saying that we're complicit in it, and that's a sin. I said, yeah, it is. He said, well, now what do we do? Because we set the precedent. I said, you know, if I were you, I would go home and tell the son, you heard this old lady talk at church, and she told you it would be a sin, and so now you got to set a new rule. You know, blame me. now you know the truth. Sometimes we don't know or we think there's nothing we can do, but we have to set the tone. That doesn't mean they're going to follow it, but we have to set the tone and say, here's what we can't do because we know that this is sinful. You're adult, you can live that way, but I can't have it in my home. Sometimes we have to have our own tone, and we can't fall back on that and say, well, they're going to do it anyways. Maybe they are, but we don't need to give them the shelter for it. We don't need to acquiesce to it and say it's okay. So you may disagree with me, but that's my mom Kuharski point of view. Pray without ceasing. Some things we think we can't change, and some people or some personalities are hard. And that's where we say we have to pray for holy detachment. That doesn't mean we ever give up or that we don't love them, but we have to detach ourselves from trying to control a situation we can't control. And so we pray for holy detachment. We still pray, we still love them, but we're detached. It's now God. One of the things I enjoy doing, and my kids all know me well enough, I have a couple, and some kids are different than others. If I told one daughter what to do, a certain daughter, she would just, she probably just don't just move and never give us her address because she's so intimidated and just doesn't have real self-confidence and doesn't feel good about herself. If I told another kid, it would just slough right out. Well, you know, Mom, she's always going to say that. So we have to know our own children well enough to know, can we approach them, or is this one we have to wait for God's timing? But I love the National Catholic Register. Every year before Lent, they come out with these, why and how to return to Sunday Mass, and why and how to return to confession. I just love this section. It's great. It's kind of a cute, tongue-in-cheek little 10 reasons why. It tells different saints or different things. I usually make copies of it, cut it out, and send it to a couple of kids I know. You know? And then I put, P.S., your mother loves you and she's praying. You know? How can you fight with the United States mail? You're not arguing, you're not nagging, you're just sending a little, your mother loves you and she's praying. You know? We can't change everything, but we can let them know what we think is important to us and how prayer is so powerful. We all know about St. Monica and how many years she prayed. One of my biggest heroes was my own aunt, she's now passed away, my Aunt Dolores. And she had 5 daughters and 1 son. And her son was such a handsome young man, such a wonderful young man. And he fell into alcoholism and some bad marriages, but the alcoholism was killing him. He just lost his job, lost his wife, lost any support that he could give to the child because he was so knee-deep in alcoholism. And when I was an at-home mom and couldn't get out very often, I wasn't doing what I'm doing now, I started a charismatic prayer group in my home that we had for every Wednesday, for 10 years. And my Aunt Dolores would come. And we would go around the room. The first half hour would be prayers of thanksgiving for all the things we were grateful for. And then the next half hour was prayers of petition, all that we were praying for. And some people would go around the room and, have lots to say and some not to say. And her prayer was the same every week that she came. I'm praying for my son, Charles. And he died in the state of alcoholism. Not totally reconciled with the church, but she never gave up. And to my mind, she was a great person and a wonderful, holy woman who just trusted that he actually was buried in the church. And I just think it was her prayers. So we have to be persistent about this and not give up and not think that it's too late or I don't see any miracles or whatever, because we may not see the miracles. It's just up to us to just keep praying, and as I said, sometimes we have to have a holy detachment to know that God is in control even when we are not. I think of another woman in my prayer group that I'm a controller. So we go around the room, and pretty soon a young woman started to join our group. Very, very shy, introverted woman, unlike myself. And so we go around the room, and she had one prayer every time, and she would say, "Oh Lord, I bless my husband. He's such a good man, but he doesn't agree with my faith at all. And if he would only let me put up a crucifix on one of the walls." Well, I went crazy. I'm thinking, this guy is a wonderful man, and he won't let her put a crucifix up. No pictures, no crucifix. He lets her go to Mass. Well, it turned out, she told me, that they met when she was outside the church, and he was kind of a druggie and kind of a loose cannon person, and they fell in love. Well, and then she had her first baby, and she yearned for what in her Irish Catholic house that she grew up in, she yearned to pass on the faith to her child. Well, this was completely foreign to this husband who never grew up with any faith, who thought they were into Hippieville until Anne decided she wants to resume becoming Catholic again. And so every week, Anne would just quietly pray for, she didn't pray for his conversion, she just that he would let her put up a cross. And then about a year later, she'd say, you know, thank you, we now have a crucifix in the house for the first time. And she wanted a holy picture. Now she's got 2 children and she wanted to have them receive First Holy Communion and get instruction. She had to pray that her husband would allow her to do that. And I kept thinking, boy, God is so smart giving this husband to her because she's got the patience of a saint, and I'd kill a guy. You know? I would nag him to death with my Italian temper. You can't let this happen, you know. Quietly she would pray, and I'd think, what a holy woman she was. Well, it turned out, long story short, they lived in, as I say, northeast Minneapolis where I did. Long story short, he got so mad at the school system, that the children, public school system, that the children were going to because of what they were trying to indoctrinate the kids with, he finally said, okay, put him in your Catholic schools, which meant a sacrifice on their part because that costs money as well as the fact it's a different faith. Now, I'm just saying, did she ever badmouth him? Not once. Did she ever talk against him and say, she might have to other people, never ever in this program in 10 years did I hear. And that was, I think, a very faithful, prayerful wife who in God's timing saw this husband coming around, you know. So some of those things were just wonderful examples to me to tell me, don't give up. Lastly, I just would like to pray, and some of you may know this prayer. I want to see if there was anything I forgot. Here's Mother Teresa. She says, God pays attention to our love. Not one of us is indispensable. God has the means to do all the things and to do away with the work of the most capable of human beings. We can work until we drop, says Mother Teresa. We can work excessively. If what we do is not connected to love, however, our work is useless in God's eyes. So, you know, if we're praying for different people, offer up those dishes, the sweeping the floor, the dusting, the going and get the kid and the picking up a kid late at night or whatever it is you have to do that you don't want to do, or visiting somebody that's growly or temperamental or infirm in the hospital or whatever it is. Offer it up. Offer it up. Then that work becomes a prayer. And you can offer for in an individual, or offer your day, or offer your hour for that individual. But I love how she says it's all in vain unless we're doing it out of love. And again, she says, love who we serve. So whoever we serve, we love who we serve, pray for who we serve, not only our family, but those who we're praying for. And then again, St. Francis, who says, we've been called to heal wounds, to unite what has fallen apart, and to bring home those who have lost their way. Many who may seem to us to be children of the devil will still become Christ's disciples. And last I'd say, you know, we're supposed to be people of joy and love, and if we look like we're living in sackcloth and ashes and gloom and doom and, you know, this faith is just so heavy a burden, who would want to join us? So we want to be people of joy, and St. Augustine says that we should be a head to toe, alleluia. So we should project that to other people, and also mercy. I had a cousin who had 5 abortions, and she was in and out of mental hospital. She attempted suicide twice. And a long story short, I had about 6 kids at the time. I invited her to come and stay with me for a week or 2 until she got on her feet. And some of my other cousins and relatives heard that she was with me and said, you went to Mary Ann's? She thinks she's the Pope's sister. She's into this religion thing really big, and do you know what she does on the side? She's pro-life. And my cousin said, you don't know Mary Ann. She says, out of all the psychiatrists, all the treatment and sessions, counseling sessions I had, all so-called friends, she says, Mary Ann was kinder and nicer to me and showed more compassion than anybody else I know. Now that wasn't me. That was the Holy Spirit. That's love in action. We love them. We see God in them. And we bring Christ to them as Mary would carry Christ to her. So that's what we're called to do, is show God's love and God's mercy as well. And again, St. Paul says in Colossians, he says, because you are God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, and you are, clothe yourselves with heartfelt mercy, with kindness, humility, meekness, and patience. That's a hard one for me, patience. So, and then of course, another one that I learned very well, Romans 12:12. Rejoice in hope, be patient under trial, persevere in prayer. And that's what we have to do. Rejoice in hope, be patient under trial, persevere in prayer. And I'll end, we'll have a question and answer, but I'll end by one of my favorite prayers. And I'd like to read it to you so I don't mess up the words, but it's one of Bishop Sheen's prayers. And if you know it, say it along with me. Lovely lady dressed in blue, teach me how to pray. God was just your little boy. Tell me what to say. Did you lift him up sometimes gently on your knee? Did you sing to him the way mother does to me? Did you hold his hand at night? Did you ever try telling stories of the world? Oh, and did he cry? Do you think he really cares if I tell him things, little things that happen? And do the angels' wings make a noise? Does he hear me when I speak low? Does he understand me now? Tell me, for you know. Lovely lady dressed in blue, teach me how to pray. God was just your little boy, and you know the way. By the way, I went to the Catholic bookstore and bought some of these cards that I wanted to give to each one of you. So I put it, you know, I'll get it out of my case in the back, and you're welcome to have. If you like that prayer, if you'd like a copy, I'd be happy to share it with you and give it to you. So, and we also have some disc CDs left, and if you know anybody that wants a bag, you want to give it as a gift or whatever, we have a few left. So, anyways, thank you for your patience. I don't want anybody to fall asleep. Do we have any questions? This was a tough topic. I don't expect that I made everybody happy.
I'll just make one comment.
Yes.
I definitely agree with. There is such a thing as praying together. Whether you want to or not, when you incorporate your kids into praying, and like we never ever even hardly left the yard without starting the rosary. In fact, our 2-year-old one time, he made the comment that it was kind of blizzarding out, and we were driving down the road, and he said, I think we should start the rosary now. And just knowing that.
Because you got them into that Catholic habit. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And there is such a thing too, is the kids do calm down and they listen.
They really do.
They really do. And I have grandchildren now, and also too, we were going someplace and it was the same way too. Now with the grandchildren, and if they can say the decade, then they get to say.
That's what we always do. They have to lead it.
Yeah, and then they get to lead it.
Yeah. And they love that. It makes it bigger than you are.
Yeah. And it makes a difference.
Thank you, Pat. Those are great additions. Yes, Ron.
I have to tell a little story about the rosary in the park. My son remarried, and his new wife had a 6-year-old daughter. She was a singer. I mean, she was a singer. And, yeah, it about drove me nuts. Anyway, she wanted to come home from Minneapolis sometime with us. I looked at her and I said, Sophie, if you drive me nuts in this car, where would you bring the rosary? Oh, my mother had one of those rosaries with the little baby and beads,
Oh, yeah.
and she saw that and she was 6 and she was grandma, let's pray the rosary. So we prayed the rosary. By the time we got to the park, we were on rosary number 5.
Oh!
And it's like, what? Ever? I didn't go out for Can you hear me?
Thank you.
She's one of those Catholic girls.
We can't force our own customs, but when they're in our house, I always say when it's my territory, watch out. I can do what I want. It's my house, my territory, my car. And we're going to pray at my house. And if they don't do it at their home, we can't force that. But when it's our home, why would we not do it if this is what we know is the right thing to do? So thank you for sharing that.
I don't think they prayed the rosary at their house very much either, but she remembered.
She remembered it. That's right. And that will stick with them. We have to remember that if the parents are the first missionaries, those grandparents and those aunts are in that first ring suburb. They're the ones that they remember. You remember that. You said that. Yeah, you did that when we first met. Anybody else? Yes.
I was just thinking about when you were talking about the clothing for the parents at the school.
Oh, yeah.
I got in the biggest fight on Facebook last year.
I just got time for Facebook,
Yeah.
which is impregnating dates.
Yeah. But I just posted this, I reposted something from, I don't know who it was, one of the priests that said, like a clothing, what you should wear to church, what's appropriate. So I just posted this and I said, you know, for all of those attending church this summer, you know, remember that you're still, you know, attending church.
Presence of God.
Yeah, and please dress appropriately. And I got in such a huge fight with people. My brother called me, oh, you're holier than thou, and who do you think you are? And one other person said, maybe they can't afford any nice clothing. Did you ever think of that? And I had to go back and say, okay, for the people that normally attend church on a regular basis and who go to the lake in the summer and then you know you're coming to mass, could you grab a t-shirt and, you know, pants, something, not short shorts, so when you come into church, you're not causing people to sin.
Halter tops and
Yeah.
I've had more priests. In fact, I don't remember if it's in that book or not, but I used to do this points of how to go to church and taking kids to church and to mass, and it's been reprinted in more church bulletins. And even my own pastor said, I wish you could do something. We've become more and more sloppy in the United States, and it's not because people can. I mean, did we ever? Some of you are gals are my age, so did you ever think it would be fashionable to have jeans with holes in them? You know, and it's very fashionable. You should see it at the airport, men and women. Not to mention the tattoos in all sorts of unusual places. But coming out of the Great Divide and everything. But at any rate, yeah, we would not, if we were going to go meet a king, if we were going to go meet some hero, baseball player, whoever it is, we would all dress up. And this idea of, well, we're lucky, we should be grateful they're coming to mass. Really? Is that what we want to think about our look? It's funny, if you go traveling someplace, especially out of the country, you can always tell an American because we're the sloppiest. It's just amazing. It's just amazing to me. And like you say, it doesn't happen. We lived on hand-me-downs. Want me to tell you how much I paid for this jacket? I'm so proud of it. I got it at a secondhand store for $11. I just love it. You know, we can dress up and look nice without, you know, breaking the bank. And our kids can nice. My rule was for the boys, they had to have a shirt with a collar. In other words, no t-shirts. But, you know, and then again, no jeans. I wouldn't let them wear jeans to church because I said that's their American uniform. I want you to be dressed up just that's like 1 hour out. They will go right back in their jeans. I don't care what they do when we're home. But it gives them a sense there's something special going on here, and so I have to dress up.
Yeah.
And you're right. You're right.
Yeah,
We
it's
can
just,
do this.
I was so amazed at how offended people were by me just suggesting that, you know, remember now you're going
Well,
to the church, but
Just
I'm
remember, if you
sure
don't call people the right name, or nowadays everybody's offended by everything.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just unbelievable. Anybody else?
Probably not the people that fought with Betty for church in the first place. They just had to say their piece.
Well, and again, it gets back to this self-righteous. I always say church is for sinners, not for saints. That's why I fit in real good. Yes, Mary, did you have something? No. Okay. Anybody else? It's too quiet. I'm getting nervous. All right, well, let's get up and stretch because then we have one short segment coming up next. And we're going to show a film. Maybe we'll show the film first. Would that be okay? Okay, so we're going to see it, but you can't fall asleep. So get up and let's get up and move a little bit. Thank you, and God bless you.
That was great.